The previous biggest margin for the All Blacks over the Springboks was back in 2003, a 36-point win at Loftus Versfeld, but they've shattered that tonight by winning by 42, 57 points to 15, and the most brilliant performance in the Rugby Championship to take it at a canter. Still a game to go after this between Australia and Argentina, but for the presentation we go down to Owen and Kumani.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. I think we're spot on. It was a world-class performance from the best team in world rugby at the moment. Without further ado, the losing captain, Adrian, please come on stage. Disappointing result, but at half-time we had our chances. We were in at only 12 points to 9.
Yeah, very disappointing, you know. When we were in it, and in the second half, we were still chasing that 7-point margin, and gave ourselves the opportunity, but outclassed today by the All Blacks in the second half. To Kieran and his team, congratulations on winning the championship and on tonight. You know, like I said, the last 20-30 minutes we weren't in it, and you know, they're a great side.
Not the ideal results in the Rugby Championship. A lot of youngsters came through in the South African rugby message. And what did this young group of players learn from the Rugby Championship?
Look, it is a young group of players, and I know, you know, it will go from strength to strength, and we will go. The guys will get better, you know, gel as a team, and the results will come. I truly believe that. But tonight is still pretty tough to wrap your head around, and you need to take your hat off to the New Zealanders. They were very good, but we could have done better.
Adrian, for you personally, last game in South African soil as captain of the Springboks. You've mentioned that you're retiring at the end of the season. I think you've been a great ambassador to South African rugby. All the best going forward.
Thank you very much, Owen, and to the support. Again, thank you. Sorry it wasn't the result you guys were looking for, but thank you for supporting us in the masses, and the Boks will be back, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Adrian. We do believe the Boks will be back now. The winning captain, Kieran Reid, a job well done. Kieran, we chatted before the game. You were calm. The Rugby Championship was done and dusted, but what a masterclass you put out there today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Firstly, to the Springboks, you know, they really turned up to fight. I guess you look at the scoreboard, didn't really expect that, to be honest, at half-time. Really close test match, and, you know, really proud of the lads, you know, to stick at it, try and travel, and to come out and do it in the second half. It was awesome.
Talking about the second half, your bench once again came through. You've got so much depth in All Black rugby at the moment. You're enjoying the victories?
Oh, certainly. It's what we play rugby for, you know, occasions like this. The crowd today was fantastic. You know, you can't ask for more, you know, when you turn up for a test match in South Africa. And, you know, as you said, our bench has been great through the whole championship, and finish it off tonight.
Another milestone as a group, equaling the world record. I mean, all the best next weekend. Hopefully you break it.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, it's you know, something that we can tick off, I guess, as a group, and look forward to the Aussies in a couple of weeks.
All the best, brother.
Thanks, mate.
Now, man of the match, Brodie Retallick, never pretty, but he was out there making sure the rucks won't go forward. The basics were in place. The line-outs were good. The scrums was good. Brodie, another great performance from you. Enjoying it?
Yeah, you know, it's been this Rugby Championship. You get some great rugby, and obviously playing away the last couple of weeks, it's always tougher playing somewhere in their own backyard. So it's been a real test the last 2 games.
Earlier on in the week, you alluded to the fact that as a group, you're searching for that 80 minutes performance. You've never started well. You felt there's patches where you need to improve. Did you get close to that 80 minutes performance as the All Blacks today?
Yeah, I think so. It was a real arm wrestle in that first half, and then we started to find a few holes. So I think it was a step in the right direction.
Job well done, and all the best going forward. For your efforts, being man of the match, courtesy of our sponsors, Castle Lager, and there's Miss Andrea Quay, who presents you with the Magnum, South Africa's favourite brew, the Castle Lager. Thank you so much, Brodie, and all the best going forward.
Well, it's certainly a low point in the history of South African rugby. New Zealand stand alone atop the rugby world. 17 matches they've now won on the trot, and the biggest ever victory margin in the history of these two nations. Matthew Pearce said it the last time that was at Loftus Versfeld, the 1652 test in 2003, and a couple of years have passed between then and now. A 42-point margin at the end of it all, and New Zealand Zealand will take on Australia in Bledisloe 3, and that will take place in Auckland on the 22nd of August. Auckland, we know, not a great place for the Aussies to visit, so you can almost rest assured that after that they'll make it 18 on the trot. South Africa's next match is against the Barbarians, but next test match, Nick, is against the English and Eddie Jones, and I don't see things improving before then. We have been for a couple of months, years now, I suppose, been looking for positives and things to talk about in order to get the Springboks looking better. Are there positives? No. Is it useful to even look for positives?
No, there aren't any positives after a loss like that. I suppose the first half was a brave performance, but remember that New Zealand were threatening probably a lot more than we were, and I spoke about the stats at half-time. It's just impossible to defend for 80 minutes if you don't hold on to the ball. And the philosophy of trying to play rugby without the ball is not only a negative one, but it just doesn't work against a side which has such an attacking genius as the All Blacks do at the moment. So what I think is we just have a look at some of the stats. 758 metres made by New Zealand. We made 174. They had 151 carries to 61. They beat 33 defenders to our 2. We missed 33 tackles today. 190 passes to 79. 24 offloads to 6. They had 68% possession and they had 71% territory. I mean, it was such a comprehensive performance in that second half. I was just so relieved to hear the final whistle, quite frankly, because it was getting very, very painful at the end.
It certainly was painful. It's one that's going to unfortunately stick in the memory. John van Rensburg was sitting with us now a little earlier, and he remarked that New Zealand never lose a match. They simply run out of time. They had more than enough time in this match, and they proved it. We were the ones sort of hoping for that final whistle, as Nick says, to go off. Where to from here, guys? Where to? We've spoken about Springbok rugby for so many weeks, as I've mentioned, in months. We've given suggestions and tried things. Where to from here, Nas?
Okay, can I take 3 minutes?
Go for it.
Mind.
Go
okay.
for it.
Now, you know, I've said it just before we went on air. I've been sitting here for quite a number of years in studio, and you know, been listening the whole time on how we're going to slow their ball down, how we're going to defend, how we need to put our structures in place. We never actually talk about, as we talked about the Lions, what's positive. How are we going to create? How are we going to outsmart somebody? And I think we really, for the last number of years, we've been talking about this. And we've really become part of a system that we don't play. We've heard it on Super Rugby level how many years Stormers is the best defensive team. And we went on and on and on. And then we started getting midfields that's bashing the whole time, not playing with the outside players. And that, for me, is a major problem. I'm taking you back. A couple of weeks ago, we sat here. I was very quiet and tongue-in-cheek, very quiet, because I had to listen here for 40 minutes how we need to sort out our defence. We never spoke about how we're going to play. Today, we had a number of turnovers. I know it wasn't a great game, and luckily Barrett had an awful first half. Otherwise, this could have been an absolute disaster. Okay? We had a number of turnovers. The first thing, we get the ball, we kick it downfield. Isn't it? Yeah. We're not even thinking of playing it out to the wing run, pass it back inside. Brian gets the ball, he kicks it out directly into touch. That's the mentality. But I still believe we got into this whole thing of the game plan dictate how the players should play, instead of let the players play on their talent. I'm telling you, on their talent. And I haven't seen that for a long time, until the Lions actually came through after 3 years of hard work. Yeah. And that's where we are.
Just hold that thought for a while. We'll get back to it. Ashwin, 2 weeks the Springboks have played test matches at home. In those 2 weeks, we haven't scored a try. It was one of the tweets I received, and I mentioned that I would throw it out to the guys in studio. Doesn't speak volumes for our attacking capability. And last weekend, you could argue that, yes, we weren't necessarily going out to score tries, but if not, then when?
Right in the build-up, I mentioned the fact that, you know, if we look at our game against the Wallabies, we managed to score, I think, what was it? And then the week before, we scored last against the All Blacks. We scored 1 try, no try against the Wallabies. Today, against the All Blacks, no tries. So if you want to beat the All Blacks, you will have to score tries. That's what we said right in the beginning, you know, because you can't come up against a team who has maximum points in every single game in the Rugby Championship and think that you can beat them without scoring a try. When we talk about our defence, we got beaten by the All Blacks last time because of a lack of a defensive structure. Today, and even in the game last week, we saw an improved defensive structure. So, you know, if you look at the box in terms of where we've been and where we are now in this year's rugby championship, you know, if you sort out defense and you're better defensively, then you have to have something called attack. Now, if we play Morne Steyn, and last week Morne Steyn came in, we wanted to beat the Wallabies. We managed to beat the Wallabies. He kicked every single penalty kick, as well as the 2 drop goals. And this week, he managed to kick all of his penalty kicks, but we were never a threat on attack. And that's where, if we look at the last game against the All Blacks, attacking, we were attacking them, but there was no defense. So it's a case of how this Bok team are able to sort out both the defense as well as the attack, because we cannot beat an All Black team and not score any tries. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen.
Well, unfortunately, though, it does sound as though what we're talking about is learning the game of rugby from scratch. Let's go back to that issue of game plan over talent. We have spoken game plan, and it's always been a feature of our talks. And probably since 2007, when Jake White was coach, we spoke game plan, game plan, game plan.
Well, yeah, I mean, in 2007, there were different laws to the game. And the laws definitely benefited the side that didn't have the ball, because they allowed the stealer to play the ball immediately. The maul had very different laws, so you could kick in the corner and drive. The kicking side, we had some very good chasers and outstanding kicker in a guy like Fourie du Preez. But I mean, looking at this, this isn't just the All Blacks, chaps. This is 5 Super Rugby franchises that all have their methods of playing, but they all do the basics correctly. Hold the ball in 2 hands. I mean, there we lose a ball and we concede a try. They score off a try. That was 1 line break, and they end up by scoring a try. I just want to quickly talk about, while this is all happening, we've got a side, the Lions, who finished first in South Africa, and they played the final of the Super Rugby Championship away, unfortunately. In their side, there were a number of players who played very, very well for the Lions and really looked good against New Zealand teams. Yet we only have one Lions player who started this test match. Now, clearly, this coaching staff of Alistair's, the coaching staff of Alistair's, and Alistair himself, they don't believe that the way that the Lions play can win you test matches. And I'm afraid I disagree. I think that the Lions were the side that held on to the ball the longest out of any franchise last year. And this year they were in the top 3 of the sides that held on to the ball themselves. If you've got the ball, the opposition can't score tries. If you hold on to the ball and you vary the way you attack, which the Lions do and the All Blacks do and all the All Black franchises do, then you end up with a situation where you can hold on to the ball and put the other people under pressure. But to kick the ball away in desperation, and particularly not getting touch against people like Naholo or Dag. And I spoke at halftime about of the frenetic nature of our defence. We tackled and tackled and tackled and tackled, but we made, I think it was something like 50 tackles at halftime to their 8. And when you get tired, you're just unable to maintain that intensity. And as soon as your intensity drops against the All Blacks, they score tries. So you have to come up with a different solution. You've got to come up with a solution of which the Lions have done, seize the nettle and say, play players who can hold on to the ball, have skills, and you challenge the opponents in areas of the game, not just in the fringes or in the driving maul, but through the width of the game, through an attacking, kicking game. We've spoken about this for ages. But this Springboks side, in the 8 games I've watched so far, they haven't, or more than that, 9, 10, they haven't shown that they're able to do this.
Ashwin, Lions game plan?
Lions game plan. You know, we've watched the Lions throughout Super Rugby. In South Africa, the best South African side in terms of their attacking play, but also they've got a wonderful defensive structure. And combined, they go out and they've performed the way that we saw them performing this year up until the final. You know, over the entire rugby championship, and I recall us also in the studio discussing many times Alton Yankees. You know, at this stage, when we talk about attack, we talk about playing Alton, the best attacking fly half in South Africa at this stage. He's not part of the 23.
Do you not think there's a problem there, and maybe Nasi can jump in here, between playing to the Springboks pattern of a play and attack and being given the freedom of the city almost, as what we see with the Lions, where he gets encouraged to maybe do what is a little more risky than usual?
Yeah, but wait now, for years now, okay, for years we've been trying, seriously, we've been trying to take away from 9 and 10, 8, 9 and 10 actually, 8, 9 and 10 the decision making. At one stage, I had to sit here and ask me, I've been sitting here for 22 years, so I know, okay? And I actually do listen. I do listen, okay? I had to listen. There's the inside center. Everything is about the inside center. Then it was at one stage the outside center. Then it was at one stage the 3 loose forwards. Unfortunately, we didn't create the game. The game is about 9 and 10 making the right decisions. And in a Lions setup, Elton is allowed to make the right decisions. If he moves out of that structure, it's a different ballgame. And that's why he's been struggling, let's be honest. It's not like he's really running the show in the Springbok jersey. And I feel for him. And I always feel for fly-offs because, you know, if you win, it's a great team. If you lose, it's a bad fly-off. That's how it works, okay? But we're big enough to take it. But I'm just saying, it's difficult. And go back to all the great teams that did extremely well in the history of rugby. They always had good scrum-off and good fly-offs.
Yeah, just to quickly finish up about Elton, that the Lions have a style of play that suits his attacking philosophy. And they retain possession and they play on the front foot. Their whole team plays a similar brand of rugby. They understand what sort of rugby they're going to try and play on the field. So Elton fits, and so does Faf, and so does Mapu, and so does Van Rensburg, and so does Whiteley, and so does Kriel, and so does Riedelhuis. All these players, Mostert. And they are outstanding for the Lions. But they are not outstanding for the Springboks. And it's not a question that you can't play this style of rugby at international level. You can. The All Blacks do it. So why can't we do it?
Argentines try it.
Exactly.
If you look, if we say, so the All Blacks, we look at the All Blacks and look at the way they play. You know, the first half they were under pressure. We didn't see them. They were trying to run the ball. Second half they come out, they kick the ball back onto us, go and compete for the ball. They win the ball back and then they attack. They get a turnover. Every single player in that All Black squad are switched on in terms of the counter-attack. Now, we talk, and Nick actually mentioned earlier, he said it's 5 Super Rugby franchises from New Zealand that's on that field. It's not just an All Black team. Now, let's look at South Africa. If we take our 5 Super Rugby franchises that's represented in the Springboks, then we see that there's distinctly different types of and styles of playing. So for a Springbok coach to come and take all of the different players and patch them together into and then trying to develop a Springbok way of playing. I think that's the difficulty for this current coach and how he'll be able to find a formula, to find a game plan, a structure that can work for this crop of players. When we talk about, for example, a fly-half, now saying that the game evolves around the fly-half, look at Elton Yankees, again, the best fly-half. We've questioned his goal kicking. Today we saw flawless goal kicking for Morné Steyn. So my question is, you know, if we're going to say we want to play a particular brand of rugby, then we also have to look at how do we compensate for what the guy who's the best in that position doesn't have. Instead of saying because he can't do X, we must take him out.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that the New Zealanders do is they really pay a lot of credence to continuity in their system, and not necessarily just with the players, but certainly with the coaches. Steve Hansen had to wait on the sidelines for 2 terms, for 8 years before he took over as head coach. So I just want to hear what his thoughts are on today, and hopefully he'll touch on the Springboks results as well.
Steve, congratulations, 17 in a row. But what made tonight so spectacular for you as a head coach?
Well, you know, the quality of the opposition and then the quality of the rugby we played, I guess. And whilst we had to really work hard in that first half, and you know, at times, you know, the Boks could have actually got some more points themselves, and they put us under a lot of pressure, and we made little errors. But at the same time, we were asking them to make a lot of tackles, and then eventually that, you know, paid off for us because they just ran out a wee bit of petrol at the end, maybe.
I'm sure you're delighted with the clinical ability to finish, the support play. Just everything seemed to click, and that's hard work that creates that.
Yeah, that's right. Everyone working off the ball and doing their own job and doing it well. And it's a little micro skills that we've been working on for quite some time now, starting to pay off. And under pressure, we've been able to perform.
A couple of words for some of the youngsters coming through.
Yeah, well, Brown had another awesome game. TJ, you know, came on under pretty difficult circumstances during the week, and he's played well. So it's always nice when the guys that are working hard come through. I thought Liam Squires came on for JK and stepped up to the plate too, so it was great.
Just looking forward, is the record in the sight now? Obviously it's in sight, but how realistic is it?
Well, you know, we've got a game next couple of weeks against Australia, and it's an opportunity. So we'll look at that, and first of all, we'll enjoy tonight and get home and get some rest and get back to our own beds and enjoy our own families, and then we'll head into that test week.
Well, it's a great win and a joy to watch. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks very much. Cheers.
I was kind of hoping you'd say something about the South African issue at the moment, and a lot of tweets coming in. I really wish I could read half of them. I really just don't have the time. Kenneth Starr saying, Tuli Madonsela, please, before you leave, investigate what's going on with the Springboks. I think we all feel that way. Almost too late for that. Let's go back to the coaching issue. Nick, we spoke about Steve Hansen and the fact that he waited for 8 years before he took over the big job. Wayne Smith, he was a coach, an assistant coach as well, and he's still part of the setup.
You know, amazingly enough, I coached the Springboks against Wayne Smith. Wayne Smith was the head coach in 2000, and I was the coach of the Springboks in 2000. So he has been part of that All Black system as an assistant coach for 16 years. He helped Graham Henry. He helped Graham Henry again. He's now helped Hansen, and they just won't allow him to go. He's such an outstanding rugby brain. And when you look at the strength of their coaching, I mean, there's no question that their structures in New Zealand rugby, that's the template South Africa needs to follow. And we've spoken in this studio about it a number of times, that unfortunately a lot of this, what we saw happen today, the blame is squarely with our structures. Squarely sits with our administrators and our structures, because we have not got a proper professional setup in South Africa that equals the New Zealand one. And you cannot expect coaches or players to compete at such a high level with inexperienced and unprofessional administrators and structures in South Africa. We've got 14 unions and we can barely afford 6 professional unions.
Yeah, well, one of the big questions I know I've been asked in the last little while is, well, wasn't Alistair Coetzee a part of the box setup in 2007 when we won the World Cup, and shouldn't he have stayed? When we get back from Growth Point Kings Park, I'll put it to these guys. Keep those tweets coming, and hopefully I can pick up 1 or 2 questions for the Jensen studio. But back to Growth Point Kings Park we go. The scene of much sadness and anguish for South African rugby supporters. Standing by is Kobus Visa with Jean de Villiers and John Mitchell.
Well, Kola, to say the least, nothing short of a humiliating loss against New Zealand. Take nothing away from the All Blacks. They are not the #1 team in the world for nothing. Jean, where does Alistair Coetzee go from here? It seems that we are there's nowhere to go from here.
Yeah, it is very difficult. You know, I think we should take a hard look at ourselves. You know, formulate a plan. How will we go forward? You know, get a couple of players together that we say these players can take us into the future and build with them. You know, tonight's performance, there are no positives that you can really take out of this game, and it you know. It's not nice to be a South African.
Victor, we really lived off the crumbs. You know, we mistakes the All Blacks made by attacking. We lived on that, but we couldn't really capitalise as well.
Yeah, I must say, there wasn't 2-3 minutes in the game where you thought, listen, we had them under pressure in their half playing, making them tackle. We were in our own half, defending the whole time. Whenever we got the ball, we gave it back to them either by a handling mistake or just kicking it away. So I think, like John said, we really need to go have a look at the whole of South African rugby. We need to fix something here.
John, but let's give the All Blacks credit. They at this stage in a league of their own, their skills levels, their approach to the game. I'm just thinking 81 minutes into the game, instead of kicking the ball into touch and they've got the 50 points to 15 lead, they start running from their own 22 and score a try. That's the right attitude.
Well, they always give themselves an opportunity. Like if you look at the first half, I think they were actually a little bit untidy with catch and pass. But in that second half, their ability to use turnover ball. But the thing that was striking to me, standing above them, watching them, is the ability that they have in setting early. Whether it be from starting points or whether it be in second phase, whether it be turnover, they just get set so early from lightning quick ruck ball. And it's just it's the effort areas. Like even in their tackle, how often do you see guys who aren't involved in post tackle back in their feet, back in the game? It's just phenomenal their work rate off the ball.
Guys, I hate this word, we're building a team, but isn't this now the right time to say, let's bring in the youngsters, the talented guys, the potential guys, the youngsters, give them a run for the next 2-3 years, build till the next World Cup, Jean?
It definitely is, and I think it's not only at team level. I think it's all the structures within South African rugby. We need to take a hard look at, how we're functioning at the moment. Are those the right structures that will take us forward, and will that be then conducive to success success on a international level. You know, so I think everyone's involved, or everyone involved needs to take responsibility for this result. But we can't have this happening again. We need to fix it.
And we have the talent out there, definitely, Victor.
Yeah, we definitely do. We've got some fantastic players, but I think, like John said, we need to go look at our fitness in South Africa of all our players. How do we get into the game? How do we play the game? How do we play it at a pace, or do we want to still slow it down like in the old days? I think we need to look at our fitness, definitely.
Well, Kola, I think everybody agrees. Alistair Coetzee needs help. He needs some more experienced coaches with him. There's talent out there in abundance. We have the talent. We need to start putting it together to be the #1 team in the world. It's going to be a long road, but we have the potential. Back to you guys in studio.
And ultimately, that's what will happen, is the spotlight will fall on Alistair Coetzee and his coaching staff. I asked the question, and we're almost out of time. Shouldn't have Alistair been the man who just stayed over? Maybe not necessarily taking over the big job, who knows, but he was there.
Well, when I was fired, they or resigned, and they appointed Harry Fulun. He lasted a very short period of time. Then they appointed Strali, who wasn't successful, and then Jake White had 4 years and did well. You know, won a World Cup, and so one argues that surely some continuity should have happened after that. And but still, it's not just about the head coach of the Springboks. That's not the problem. The problem in South Africa is that we cannot afford 14 professional rugby unions. He talks about all the talent that we've got. A lot of our young talent is going overseas because of the rand and dollar and rand, euro and pound. So we've got to keep our players in this country by reducing the number of professional sides and making those professional franchises professional in the sense that people can own shares in those, as they do in England, the clubs, and as they do in France, the clubs, so that businessmen are running our franchises and not politically presidents who are politically voted into position.
Ash, do you want to jump in there?
My question is, you know, if we talk structures and we talk, you know, what Nick has alluded to, John and Victor and everyone, my question is, what does that have to do with coaching at Super Rugby franchise level? Because if we look at and we discuss the All Blacks versus South Africa, we talk All Blacks as a national team made up of 5 franchises that play a particular brand of rugby, all 5 franchises, versus South Africa, same thing, every different franchise plays its own brand of rugby. So that's the problem,
Ashwin. That's exactly the problem.
So where does that then come into
that's
the
the problem,
coaching?
because in New Zealand, the All Blacks are placed first. So the New Zealand Rugby Union contracts all the Super Rugby players, and they place them in the franchises. In the Stormers, they contract their players and they appoint their coach. So what I'm pointing out is that they have a centralised system run for the benefit of New Zealand rugby. We have a system which benefits our provinces but doesn't benefit the national side.
So to the benefit of the argument, I want to put this on the table to say, if that's the case and that's what we say should happen to South African rugby, why are we then saying that the Lions is a model to follow? Because the Lions are functioning as an independent rugby organization within the structure that we are talking about, and yet we are complementing what they are achieving. So it means that the structure is not a prohibitor to achieve what the Lions has achieved.
You're missing the point. No, it doesn't.
Great, we're going to get back to that because it's heating up in the studio, and we need to find answers ultimately. I think that's the big thing for all of us, for South African rugby as well. And I think you're right. The Lions have certainly led the charge from a South African point of view, and maybe they should lead the charge insofar as spreading their game and the gospel to the other unions, but I think there certainly is a shout for unity. To Alistair Coetzee, he is a man under pressure, the beleaguered coach of the Springboks.
Alistair, you have that solemn look on your face because it is a dark day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's in a way embarrassing, you know, the way we sort of fell apart in the second half. I think I don't want to make excuses, and only thing is if your effort is not good enough and you get punished like this. 20 minutes to go, 22-15, we're still in the game, and then there's a charge down and everything sort of turned ugly after that. Yeah, it's tough, it's hurting, and it's something that you can't measure the effort of the players by, especially the last 10 minutes with the, compounded by the yellow card as well. We have to fix it. We have to fix it.
What are you going to do to fix it? I mean, we had 70% of possession against us tonight, territorially not in the game. What are you going to do to fix this?
Yeah, look, the first thing is, well, I think it's not just a Springbok problem, but South African problems are aerial skills. That's the one thing. If you kick contestable and you can't handle if you kick distance and you can't handle the contestable kick back, then we have a problem. And it doesn't matter what what you try, the type of kick you want to employ. Contestables we don't win, they win it. When we kick distance, they got their numbers back, and we can't handle that contestable. Then it becomes a bit difficult to play a kicking game, because you can't run yourself out of your half and think you're going to get territory by running you out with a defence like they have.
They run out.
Yeah, well, I think the big thing is, like I said and professed early in the year, and I'm not pointing fingers, the first fingers that I'll point is at me, is about our movement, a speed of movement off the ball, and that is where they are much better at this point in time. And a lot of coaches have spoken about the fitness. A lot of coaches have, spoken about their system setup, and therefore you see in everything they do, they just set with more intensity, early on defence, early on attack, and that's why they can get the space out wide.
What would your message be to the past players now, the fans, the public, who are sitting at home bitterly disappointed right now?
No, we all are bitterly disappointed, and they are rightly so. They need to be. But look, I've gone through tough times in my life, and one has got to have patience in affliction, and just believe and trust that if we have better players in the country, surely I would like to get them and have a look at them in the end of year tour. But we as a group will have to turn it around. We will have to look ourselves in the mirror and ask yourself, was that good enough to represent your country? And we've got to start somewhere. Unfortunately, we have played against a New Zealand side that is really, one should give credit to them as well. It's probably one of the better sides, the best sides I've seen, with their continuity, with their confidence and the form that they are showing. Whatever they do it accurately, they execute on the field. And we have to sort of send our replacements, just after 45th minute to bring impact. They lost and they do their impact at 60. So whatever you try and rectify, then there's just a better counter from them. So, all credit to them, but we've got some work to do.
Right, well, he's certainly a man with a lot on his plate and a lot to do before the end of year tour, which starts with the Barbarians before they take on the English, the Italians, and then the Welsh, which also won't be an easy match. So a lot of planning to be done. There is a coaches indaba in between. Let's hope that some of the Barbs that were fired today on the show will at least make their way there, and let's hope that the Springboks in the long run will be able to bounce back. I certainly wish we could keep the chat going. We can't, so we will carry it over to our magazine shows over the course of next week, and I'm pretty sure for the weeks to come. Do keep the conversation going, especially via Twitter. Use that hashtag SSRugby. Ask the questions, and we'll always put them to the experts in studio. Hard luck to the Springboks. Well done to the New Zealanders, proving once again that they are top of the rugby world. Have a good night.